we are incredibly humbled. This leadership team, Sonny and I, we are incredibly honored that you are here. But let me say this right off the bat. We are not your saviors. We cannot make you whole. This church will not be ideal. There is no such thing. We're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to lift up the name of Jesus so high that he will draw men and women and children and students to himself. We're so glad that you're here. We're honored that you are here. But if you're here for me, you're here for the wrong reason. And if you're here for Sonny, well, that's probably a good reason to be here. But we're here, and the presence of God is here, because this brings Him glory. So thank you for being here. We sang, the guys sang, and they made it clear. Come, all you who are weary, gather around me and find rest for your souls. Wonderful words of Jesus for you and for me. And the invitation that Jesus gave 2,000 years ago to those people at Galilee is just as true of an invitation for you and me tonight. Anybody here weary? Man, tired? Well, I can't tell you how tired I am. But here's the thing. God is here to encourage us, to lift us up, and to give us rest. For many of you, you are tired and weary. For many of you, you've been on a long journey. For many of you, you're just hurried and you're just busy. Jesus offers rest for your soul. For others of you, you're excited and you're fired up and you look at a room like this and you go, oh my gosh, look at what God's done, and it makes your soul feel great. Wherever you are, whomever you are, this invitation from Jesus of Nazareth is for you. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Tonight I want us to look at this invitation that Jesus gave us, words that were recorded in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28, 29, and 30. So if you have your Bibles or your iPad or your iPod or whatever, find Matthew chapter 11, 28, 29, and 30. And what I'd like us to do, even though it might be a little hard to, I'd like everybody to stand. We're going to put the words on the screen, and I'd like everybody to read out loud. We're going to put the words on the screen from the New International Version. And then we're going to follow up the same passage from the Message paraphrase. And so I'll lead, but I'd like all of us to read out loud these words of Jesus. Matthew 11, 28 says this: Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Are you tired? Here it comes. Read this with me. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly. Amen. You can be seated. Amen. Jesus begins this invitation by saying, come. Jesus invites all of us, wherever we are, whomever we are, to come and be in relationship with Him. He invites the sinner to meet the holy. He invites the broken to meet the healer. He invites the lost to find the way. Jesus calls all of us to Himself. And He doesn't just call the cool people. Or I certainly wouldn't be here. He calls all of us. He calls rich people and poor people. He calls the saints and he calls the sinners. He calls all of us to him. As Jesus is talking about these words, he's speaking these words in a region called Galilee. And some of you have heard of that area. People in Galilee knew Jesus. Jesus grew up in that area. That's where Nazareth is from. That's where Nazareth is. Jesus performed his first miracle in that area. Jesus preached the greatest sermon ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount, in this region. In fact, most of his disciples came from this area of Galilee. So when Jesus is speaking this invitation, when he's offering this out to people, the people that are hearing him, they know who he is, and they know what he's about. Some of them have had their marriages restored. Some of them have been broken and Jesus has healed them. Some have abandoned everything, surrendered all to follow this guy. Blind people, now they see. They're listening to these words. Hungry people that have been fed by Jesus are listening to these words. But there were some other people in the crowd in Galilee. There were some people that were skeptical. They were listening to every word. There were some disbelievers in the crowd. There were those who showed up to hear if Jesus would call someone out on their sin. There were some in that crowd who were angry. There were some who were disappointed. There were some who were hurt. Some that were broken. Some with just a bunch of questions. And as I look around this room tonight, I would imagine that we probably look a lot like that crowd that Jesus first spoke these words to. That there are some of us that are angry. And there are some of us that are disappointed. And there are some of us that have lots of questions. There are some of us whose marriages have been healed, who were broken and now have been restored. The invitation that Jesus gave 2,000 years ago is relevant to all of us tonight. And it's just as powerful of an invitation today as it was 2,000 years ago. And here's the amazing thing. Jesus doesn't call us to anything. He doesn't call us to a new set of rules or to a new program or to the new next thing. Jesus doesn't call anyone to a new church. He calls all of us to him. Come to me. He calls us to himself. Jesus invites you and me that he may have full access to us, to our hearts, to our past, to our present, and to our future, and that we might have full access to him. Can you get this in your head? The God of the universe invites all of us to him, to be in relationship with him. I'm not sure why you came tonight. I'm not sure if you came just to check it out, this new church, what's Greg and Sonny, what's up? I'm not sure why you came tonight. But make no mistake, you have been brought here by divine initiative to hear these words, come to me. You are here, whether you believe it or not, you are here because Jesus has made a way for you to hear his invitation, for you to come to him that he might give you rest. He wants you to know rest from this crazy world. He wants you to abide in rest from your hurried life. Rest from the gossip. Rest from the uncertainty. He wants you to know the rest that he can bring. Verse 28 in the message, we just read it a few minutes ago. I love this paraphrase. It says, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion, come to me and get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. You will not find rest in any other person. You will not find ultimate rest in any other relationship. Rest for your soul will not be found in a new job, in a new spouse, or a new church. There is simply no one, nothing else that can bring you rest other than the person of Jesus Christ himself. And it's that person that calls you and me to come. So I want to invite you to come. I want to stop right here, right now. And I want to invite you to come. He has extended an invitation. You have been brought to this place for such a time as this right now. And I want us to stop. And I want to challenge you, whatever it looks like for you, to accept his invitation and to come. And so we're just going to be still. And I'm just going to offer that to you. And in the silence of these moments, wherever you are, whatever has brought you here, I want to invite you to accept his invitation. And I want to challenge you to come. So we're just going to be quiet. And then in a few minutes, or a few moments, then I'll pray and we'll move on. So let's be quiet together and think about this invitation and accept it and come. God, we corporately, we say we're sorry. And we ask for your forgiveness for not coming to you sooner, for not coming to you earlier. And so as this new church gets started, we say we need you. And we accept your invitation to come. And God, we trust you that you will lead us. We trust you that you will make a way for us to live in this dark world and to be a light. God, we trust that marriages will be restored, that the addicted will be healed, that sinners will become saints, not to us, but to your name be the glory forever and ever and ever. Amen. That's what we want to be about as a church. We want to use this to lift up Jesus. We want to use this, his words, these words, the words of the Holy Scriptures, to lift Jesus up so high that he will draw men and women and children to himself. That's what we want to be about as a church. We want to proclaim this invitation to a lost and dying world. We want to take this book and live the way this book teaches, and then go out and tell friends and family, do you know about the rest that can only come from Jesus? We want to go out into the community. We want to go out into the world and say, do you know this Jesus who brings us rest? It's a simple, but it's a staggering invitation. Come. Come. The invitation of Jesus, it doesn't stop with the come. it doesn't just stop there. Jesus continues his invitation. He takes it a step further. Check out verse 29. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest from your soul." The Message paraphrase says it in a little bit of a different way. It says, "Walk with me and work with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." First, Jesus says, "Come." And we all have come. But then he says, "Take." And this is where many of us stop. This is where many of us struggle. The take part. The come, that's easy. We can come. We can listen. We've all got problems. We're all tired. We're all hurried. We can come. But can you take his yoke upon you and learn from him? All of us like the benefits of coming, but we're not so certain about the implication of taking. Take is a much deeper experience. When we come to Christ, he gives us rest. But when we take his yoke and begin to learn from him, we find rest for our souls. And there's a deeper rest offered in surrender and obedience. In taking on his yoke, we find what the world is so desperate to have. We find an intimate, authentic relationship with Jesus Christ. Jesus says, "Come and learn from me. I'll show you how to do it. I will sustain you. I will help you stand firm." Jesus is not saying, "I will hold your hand, I will take you to bed, and I will sing a lullaby over you," although he does do that. He's saying, "I will get you out of bed, I will get you out of your apathy and your exhaustion, out of your condition of being half dead while you are still alive. I will penetrate you with the Spirit of life, and you will be sustained by the perfection of my purposed activity. So come and take." When this Galilean audience, when they heard these words, they would instantly connect with what Jesus was saying. When he was talking about taking on his yoke, this Galilean audience, they would understand exactly what he means. In that society, a yoke was one of those wooden pieces that were typically put on oxen to pull a plow behind or to carry a heavy load. And so the picture is this. The picture is Jesus is in one side of the yoke, and he invites you and me to stick our heads in to the other side of the yoke. And he says, "Hey, come with me. Walk with me. Learn from me. I won't lay anything too heavy on you. Watch how I do it. Learn from me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly." When the Galilean audience heard Jesus talk about yoke, they understood that that meant something more than just to come. That meant to get locked in with him. But they also knew instantly that Jesus was also talking about discipleship. Jesus was giving an invitation for all of his hearers to come and be his student, to come and be his disciple, to come and learn the skills of faith, to do it like him, to live like him. Jesus was inviting you and me to come and forgive like him, to come and share like he shared, to come and care like he cared, to come and surrender like he surrendered. This invitation to come, it literally meant to come and take and be like him, to live like him, and to love like him. Jesus is extending this invitation for you and me to literally be like him. Are you kidding me? You and me. To actually live like Jesus. To actually love like Jesus. Can you fathom that? That's what he's saying. And that's what this church is going to be about. We're going to be about being in the process of being transformed by the gospel to live and love like Jesus. Nothing less. So is this going to be a place where you can bring lost people? Yes. Because what do lost people want? Lost people want an invitation to come and rest. Is this going to be a church where you can bring your friend who's an addict? Yes. Is this a church where you can bring your saintly grandmother? Yes. This is it. This invitation for us to do it like him, this invitation is for all. And we're interested in nothing less. But let me make this clear. It's not going to happen by you just showing up on Sunday nights. It's not going to happen by you participating in programs that this new church has to offer. You're not going to get there by just, making transactions. Read my Bible, check. Said my prayers, check. Kissed my kids. This is my kid right here, Audrey Grace. What's up? I'll give you a kiss. We're talking about kissing kids. Kiss my kids, check. Gave in the offering, but not a check, right? There are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts in this process of transformation. Growing in the grace and knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ is a moment-by-moment, surrendered, dependent life. Jesus is not interested in the immediate or the casual. There is no room for the doctrine of instant gratification or instant satisfaction. It will not happen that way. So, we, in this new church, I'm just going to tell you, we will refuse to accommodate the consumer, me-driven churchianity of our modern day. We will not have it. We're going to be about transformation by the gospel to literally become, to live and love like Jesus. But we won't give in to the temptation of allowing Jesus just to be some figurehead of our religion. That's not who he is. He's more than that. He is our example. He is our model. But he is salvation itself. He is the gospel of God. Could you imagine what God can do with a bunch of people like you and me who actually pursued the relationship to look and love like him? Literally to become this body, to become the gospel of God. Could you imagine what he could do with something like that? This would be a church full of liars and hypocrites. And this would be a church full of workaholics and the self-addicted. This would be a church that's full of prostitutes and drunks and saints and servants and scholars and politicians and abusers and followers who are in the process of pursuing this radical life that Jesus came to give us. Could you imagine what that body would look like? It would look like the body of Christ that Jesus came to die for. But it'll never happen if you just show up on Sunday nights. It'll never happen because you start attending a new church. It'll never happen because you think these guys are cool or they know the way. It will never happen. It will only happen when you come, when you take on his yoke, when you learn from him and become his disciple. When you begin to live and love the way that this book teaches us. But I know that some of us don't want that. I know some of us would rather have just the come part. But we're pursuing something deeper than that. We're pursuing something more than that. We're tired of the cut and paste mentality of reading the Bible. We're tired of figuring out a verse here or there and applying it to our lives. We want to so order our lives that it fits into the gospel of Jesus Christ and nothing else. So when we pick and choose verses and say, well, I can excuse my behavior by this verse, or I can excuse my wife's behavior by this verse. No. We're going to challenge you, and you're going to challenge me to rearrange my life so that it fits in with Scripture, that it is modeled by Scripture, that it is shaped by Scripture, that it is focused by Scripture. I truly believe that if we don't start living the way that this book teaches us to live, that we are one generation away from losing all forms of true discipleship in our modern day. One generation. And the only way that that can change in our neighborhood is if this church and every other church pursues the life that Jesus calls us to live. Verse 30, this life that he calls us to live. It sounds crazy. But Jesus says, and it's recorded here in verse 30, for my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. And the Message paraphrase says, I won't lay anything that is heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly. We don't have to fear this invitation. We're not getting crazy. This is an invitation of His. This is an invitation of Jesus. But if we really want to pursue this kind of life, then we will have to lay down our preferences. We will have to open up our hands and our hearts to live the way, the easy way, the light way that Jesus extends the invitation for us to live. This idea of transformation, learning, hearing, coming, taking, where are you in that whole thing? Are you coming and you're checking it out, and that's cool. Wherever you are, that's cool. Are you taking on, this yoke and learning from Him, not just about Him, but from Him? Are you learning from Him? Are you there? Are you learning? Are you in a place where you can look at your wife and kids and you can say, guys, I know you think I'm nuts, but the way I live, the way that I pray, the way that I share, the way that I care, this is what it looks like to live like Jesus. Guys, kids, Audrey Grace, if you want to know what it looks like to live like Jesus, then live like your mom, not me. Can you look at your kids and say the greatest example that I have for you of what it looks like to love and live like Jesus is me? See, because that's what they think it looks like to live like Jesus. The way you act, the way that I act. Oh, my kids think that the way I act is the way that Jesus must want me to act because I say that I'm a Christian. I say that I'm a Christ follower. So where are you in this process of transformation? To be transformed by the gospel, to live and love like Jesus. I'm in process. I'm in this journey with you. I'm in process. Sonny and the guys that are helping us, we are all on a journey. None of us have arrived. Now, I just want to illustrate this, and then I'll close. I've been in this process for a while. I realized a few years ago that I was hanging out over here on the come part. And I wasn't really serious about the take part. I wasn't really into that whole thing. And I was a chronic complainer. And I was always frustrated. I was habitually self-absorbed. And I never fully understood or lived in this peace and joy that everybody else talked about. And I couldn't understand why. And then these two little girls were born. Kennedy and Kendall. I moved to Atlanta about 8 years ago, and Audrey Grace and Christy and our other daughter Adele stayed back in Lexington to kind of get the house sold and all that stuff. And as I moved down, I'd been here just a few weeks, my friend Gordon called and he said, my two daughters have just been born, Kendall and Kennedy. And he said they're the youngest babies that have survived a premature delivery in the state of Kentucky. And I don't know what the number was, like 20-something weeks, 20-something crazy weeks, you know? And Gordon said, they're not going to make it. And we got to pray. Could you pray? Could you come back to Lexington and bring your guitar, and we're just going to have a worship service in the NICU, and we're just going to pray like crazy. Could you do that? And I said, yeah, man. And I hopped in the car and headed back for Lexington, and I'm driving down on the freeway, and my wife calls and she goes, look, man, I know that you're on the way, but I just want to prepare you that when you walk into the room, do not freak out. These babies are little. I was like, okay, I got this, right? I got it. They're little. And I'm thinking, well, Adele was little, you know. Audrey Grace was little for that matter. I got little. And I walked into the room, and I lost it. These two little babies were hooked up with like tubes and wires, and I really couldn't even see their faces for all this stuff, and I just totally lost it. And my wife was gracious enough not to say, you know, see, told you, she did not do that, which I'm thankful. And we prayed up a storm, y'all. And we had our guitars in the NICU at the University of Kentucky Hospital, and these nurses were walking by, and they're like, "What the heck are y'all doing?" And we're just begging God to save these two little ones. And it was sweet, man. It was holy. And I hopped back in the car and drove back, and the girls were, you know, stayed here, and I'd been home for just a day or two, and Gordon called, and he goes, "Look, man, Kennedy just went to heaven. And could you come back to Lexington and do a funeral? We're going to do a funeral." And I said, okay. And I came back and we did this funeral, and it was one of the craziest things. But after the funeral, we went back up to the hospital and we begged God. We were like, "Man, God, please." And I was with this guy named Dr. Don Durham, and he was a saint. And he wasn't like a doctor, like a hospital doctor. He was, I don't know, he was like an honorary doctor or something, you know, one of those. And he was holding my hand, and we were having this big old prayer meeting. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but have you ever been in a prayer meeting where like everybody's praying up a storm, but you're thinking about basketball or, you know, what I mean? And we're holding hands, and he's praying up a storm, and I'm just kind of thinking about other stuff. I don't know why, but I wasn't like dialed in. And then he said these words. He said, "God, I willingly will trade my life for Kendall's life if you would choose just to let her live. But not my will, but your will be done. But I willingly put my life in your hands and my death in your hands. If you would be so gracious to allow this child to live, please take my life." But by this time I had both eyes open and my mouth like, what did he just say? What did he just pray? Here's why. No, I wasn't praying that. I mean, I had books to write. I had races to run. I had sermons to preach. You know? And this guy's saying, "Take my life, not me." See, I hadn't taken on his yoke to become his disciple. I had come, but I hadn't surrendered fully my life to the life of our Savior. A couple of years ago, me and Dr. Durham stood on this stage in Lexington, Kentucky, and we baptized Kendall. And I think we have this picture of her. There she is. See, all God wants is you and your willingness to follow Him and your willingness to trust Him. And after that whole deal, after that whole thing, I realized that Dr. Durham, holding my hand, knew something about transformation and what it looked like to be transformed by the gospel, to live and love like Jesus, and I had no idea. My prayer and your prayer must be, you can have my life and you can have my death. You can have every bit of it. I will trade in my life. I'll trade in my sinful ways. I'll trade all of it in so that my wife might see you in me. I'll trade it all in, all my selfishness, all my desires, all my dreams. I will trade it in so that my daughter might see you in me. That's the prayer. That's the prayer of the person who says, I'm all in. Would you pray that prayer tonight? Man, would you say that? It's a dangerous prayer. You never know what's going to happen. It's very, very dangerous. But here's the result. You'll learn to live freely and lightly. So one more time. Where are you? Coming, listening, checking it out? Taking on His yoke and learning from Him to be His disciple? And being willing to surrender and be dependent and say, God, whatever you have, wherever you have, I want to go. Because I want to be about what you want me to be about. This is the best part. Here we go. This is the best part. Wherever you are, it's okay. Because check it out. Jesus willingly traded in His life for you. Wherever you are. Jesus willingly became your sin. The sin that you think no one knows about. The sin that you think you've kept so hidden for all these years behind you. The sin that drives you. Jesus became that sin. Willingly traded Himself in. Became your sin. Hung on a cross. Bought you with a price so that you might live freely and lightly. And all He asks of you is to come and learn. Take my yoke and learn from me. For I am gentle, I am humble in heart. Watch me, learn from me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly. Knowing who you are and knowing who I am, can you imagine that Jesus did that for you? Can you look in the mirror and go, for me, you got to be kidding. Right? Jesus loves you so much, and He traded His life so that you might live. Not just life, that you might have a real life. And not just real life, but He said that you might have abundant life. And not just abundant life, that you and I might have eternal life. And it's to that Jesus that we invite you to come to worship tonight. Let's pray. Jesus, we want to have the courage to trade it. We want to have the courage to give it to you. we're not so sure about this invitation to live freely and lightly. So in these moments, God, would you confirm in our souls by your presence that we can trust you, that we can trade in our flesh, so that you might live in us and through us. God, would you help us dads to love you so much that our wives would see you and want to follow you with their whole hearts. And God, would you help us dads, grandparents, love you so much that our children, that our grandchildren would want to know what makes us the way that we are. And we can say, because we came and we met this guy named Jesus, and he changed everything. God, I thank you that you love us and care about us. In these moments, God, would you just continue to minister to our hearts? We love you, and we give you praise. In Jesus' name. I want to invite you, if you're sitting next to your spouse, or you got your kids near you, I want to invite you just to huddle up and just take a second, just take a minute, and just huddle up and pray for each other. And if you're here by yourself, if you're on your own, you're here by yourself. If you're courageous enough, jump in with somebody that's sitting next to you. I know that sounds crazy, but right? Aren't we all in this together? I mean, so it's cool. It's cool to just step in if you're by yourself and just say, hey, I need Jesus. I need his truth. I need his spirit. I need rest from my soul. So we're just going to take the next few minutes and we're just going to pray. And then the worship team is going to lead us on, and we'll continue to worship together.